Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
I'm 35 now, but back in college I made what seemed like a smart financial decision at the time, renting a small house with 3 guys to split the costs. We were all in our early 20s, fresh out of our parents' homes, and I quickly learned that being the only woman in the house came with some unexpected responsibilities. The house itself was nothing fancy, just a basic rental with 3 bedrooms and 1 bathroom that we all had to share. My mom had raised me to keep things clean and organized, so naturally I ended up being the one who did most of the cleaning. At first, I didn't mind too much. I figured we were all adjusting to living independently and things would balance out eventually. But when months went by, I realized my roommates had gotten way too comfortable with me handling everything. I'd constantly find their stuff scattered around our common areas, shoes kicked off randomly in the living room, laptop cords stretched across walkways, dirty dishes left on every surface. So I started putting things away where they belonged. Shoes went in the front closet, electronics got moved to safe spots on shelves, and dishes made their way to the kitchen. You'd think this would be appreciated, right? Wrong. Instead of gratitude, I got constant complaints. They'd whine about not being able to find their shoes when I put them in the front closet where they belonged. They'd get frustrated when I moved their laptop to a shelf so no one would trip over the cord. They acted like I was hiding their stuff from them instead of putting it in reasonable places we'd all agreed on. This went on for months. They treated me like some kind of control freak instead of the person keeping our shared space livable. But the real problem started when one of my roommates' girlfriend basically moved in without anyone asking me. Let me be clear, she didn't officially live there. She had her own place somewhere else that she was supposedly paying rent for, but somehow all of her belongings ended up in our house. Her clothes filled up half the closets, her food took over entire shelves in our tiny fridge, and worst of all, her bathroom products completely invaded our one shared bathroom. I tried to be welcoming at first. I even drove her places when she needed rides and helped her look for a job, thinking maybe if she found work she'd contribute something to our household expenses, but no such luck. She just kept treating our place like her personal hotel. The bathroom situation got ridiculous fast. She showered twice a day, once in the morning and once at night, despite not paying a single penny toward our water bill. Our tiny shower went from having maybe 6 or 7 bottles of basic shampoo and soap to having what looked like an entire beauty supply store crammed onto every available surface. Expensive shampoo bars, multiple conditioners, fancy face washes, body scrubs, hair masks, you name it. It was there. Cleaning became a nightmare. Every time I tried to scrub the shower, I had to carefully move dozens of bottles and products, clean around them, then put everything back exactly where it was or face complaints later. One day, I'd finally had enough. I asked Karen if she could maybe keep her bathroom stuff in her boyfriend's room since it was getting really hard to clean the shower with everything in there. She told me she needed her products in the bathroom because that's where she used them. When I explained that there was barely any room left and I had to move everything when I cleaned, she just asked why I couldn't clean around them instead. Her boyfriend immediately backed her up, saying I should just work around it because it wasn't that big a deal. I looked at my other roommates for support, but they just shrugged. Then came the words that would change everything. One of them told me to just leave their stuff where I found it and stop moving everything around. When I asked if they really wanted me to leave everything exactly where I found it, all 3 guys nodded in agreement. Karen smirked like she'd won some kind of victory. So I told them alright, I'd leave everything exactly where I found it. The next week I started my new cleaning routine. When I cleaned the shower, instead of carefully moving all of Karen's products, I just sprayed everything down with scrubbing bubbles and scrubbed around them. The cleaning solution was pretty harsh, and it didn't take long for her expensive shampoo bar to start dissolving. Her fancy bottled products got slippery and gross, but hey, I was just following orders and leaving things where I found them. A few days later, I was walking through the living room when I tripped over a laptop cord that was stretched across the main walkway. The cord got yanked out of the wall and the laptop battery died. My roommate got angry and asked why I didn't unplug his laptop properly, complaining that he'd lost all his work. I explained that he'd told me to leave his stuff where I found it and the cord was plugged in, so I left it plugged in. But my favorite moment of malicious compliance came about a week later. Karen and her boyfriend had left their shoes scattered all over our living room rug, at least 4 pairs just thrown around randomly. The front closet was literally 3 feet away, but apparently that was too much effort. I needed to vacuum the whole house, and there were shoes everywhere on the rug. So I did exactly what they asked me to do. I rolled up the entire living room rug with all their shoes still on it, then vacuumed the bare floor underneath. About halfway through cleaning the rest of the house, they came rushing out of the bedroom asking where their shoes were because they needed to leave right away. My roommate demanded to know what I'd done with them this time. I told them I didn't do anything with them and had left them exactly where I found them. They started searching everywhere: the closet, under furniture, in the kitchen. Karen was getting more and more frustrated by the minute, saying this was ridiculous and that I'd obviously moved them somewhere. I promised that I'd left their shoes exactly where they'd left them. This went on for about 30 minutes. They were getting later and later for wherever they needed to go, and Karen was practically yelling at me, saying I was being completely unreasonable and demanding I just tell them where I'd put the shoes. Finally, I finished vacuuming and started unrolling the living room rug to put it back in place. When the rug unfurled, out tumbled all 4 pairs of shoes. Complete confusion, then realization, then anger. My roommate asked if I was kidding him, saying I'd rolled them up in the rug. Karen said that wasn't what they meant, and I knew it. I reminded them that they'd told me to leave their stuff where I found it, and their shoes were on the rug, so I left them on the rug. Karen called me a complete jerk while my roommate said I was being petty and stupid. I explained that I was just following the house rules that they'd all agreed on. They called me every name in the book while putting on their shoes, but something magical happened after that day. Suddenly, Karen's expensive bathroom products started appearing in neat little containers that she kept in her boyfriend's room. Shoes began making their way into the front closet instead of being scattered around our living space. The laptop found a permanent home on a desk instead of having its cord stretched across walking areas. Nobody ever admitted that my malicious compliance had worked, but they didn't have to. The house stayed cleaner. I could actually do my cleaning routine without playing Tetris with other people's belongings. And Karen finally started contributing some money toward utilities since she was clearly living there full-time. They kept calling me petty and passive-aggressive for months afterward, but none of them went back to their messy habits. Turns out sometimes you have to show people exactly what their unreasonable demands look like in practice before they realize how unreasonable they actually are. And rolling up that rug with their shoes inside remains one of my most satisfying moments of petty revenge to this day. One of the ways I save money is by bringing homemade lunches every day. Nothing fancy, usually just rice with some stew I make on Sundays, or simple sandwiches when I'm feeling lazy. It helps me save probably $50 a week compared to buying lunch out. The office is pretty small, maybe 15 people total, and we all share one break room with a single fridge and microwave. Most people either go out to eat or bring their own food, and it's usually not a big deal. That is, until Karen started working here about 6 months ago. Karen works in the same department as me, so we sit pretty close to each other. She's one of those people who's always got some kind of drama going on. She complains about everything. The coffee is too weak, the air conditioning is too cold, her computer is too slow. But the thing that really started getting on my nerves was her lunch situation. It started small. She'd walk by my desk when I was eating and make little comments. She'd ask what I was eating and compliment how good it smelled. When I told her it was just chicken stew I made yesterday, she'd go on about how lucky I was to have time to cook. She always claimed she was too busy to pack anything and forgot her lunch all the time. I didn't think much of it at first. We all forget lunch sometimes, right? But then it became a pattern. Every single day she'd forget her lunch and make these passive-aggressive comments about how good my food looked or smelled. The first time she actually asked for some of my food was about 2 months ago. I was eating a turkey sandwich and some leftover pasta salad when she walked into the break room. She looked at my lunch and commented that I had brought a lot of food, asking if I was really going to eat all of that by myself. I looked down at my normal-sized lunch, confused. I told her that, yes, this was just my lunch. She said she was starving and had forgotten her lunch again. She mentioned she didn't get paid until Friday and asked if I could share some with her. I felt bad for her, so I gave her half my sandwich. She ate it without even saying thank you, and then made a comment about how I looked moody about sharing. I brushed it off, thinking maybe she was just having a bad day. But then it happened again the next week, and the week after that. Each time she'd make the same excuse about forgetting her lunch or not having money, and each time she'd guilt me into sharing. After I give her some of my food, she'd always find something to complain about. She'd say it was good but too spicy for her taste, or tell me that I didn't really give the food from my heart because she could tell by my face. I started to realize what was happening, but I didn't want to cause drama at work, so I just tried to eat at my desk more often, or take my lunch breaks at different times. But Karen always seemed to find me. The breaking point came last Thursday. I had made a really nice beef stew over the weekend and brought a decent portion with some rice. I was actually looking forward to it because it had turned out really well. I was sitting in the break room just enjoying my meal and scrolling through my phone when Karen walked in. She looked at my food and made the same comment she always did, that I had brought a lot, and asked if I was going to eat all of it by myself. I looked at her, then at my normal-sized portion, and just nodded. I kept eating, hoping she'd get the hint. Then she directly asked if she could have some. She said she had forgotten her lunch at home again and was very hungry. I told her no, that this was my lunch. Her whole demeanor changed instantly. She got angry and called me wicked. She brought up the last time she ate my food and said she could see that moody look on my face. She accused me of not giving her the food from my heart. I told her that this had happened at least 5 times in the last 2 months, and that I brought lunch for myself, not to feed other people. She said she couldn't believe how stingy I was, and that we were supposed to be a team. She stormed out of the break room. The next day I went to get my lunch from the fridge and noticed that someone had taken a bite out of my sandwich. Not the whole thing, just a bite like they were testing it. I also remembered that a few weeks ago someone had taken half of another co-worker's leftover pizza. When confronted, Karen had claimed she thought it was leftovers for everyone, even though it was clearly labeled with someone's name. That's when I started labeling everything. I got a pack of stickers and wrote my name on every container, every sandwich bag, everything. I even started putting them in a separate bag inside the fridge. Karen completely stopped talking to me. I'd say good morning and she'd ignore me. I'd ask her work-related questions and she'd answer in the shortest possible way or pretend she didn't hear me. My co-worker Sarah noticed the tension after about a week. She asked me what was going on between me and Karen because Karen had seemed really rude when I said hi earlier. I told Sarah honestly that I didn't know and that I wasn't having any issues with her. Sarah went and asked Karen directly what was wrong between us. Karen told her that she just hated stingy people and that some people in the office were so selfish they wouldn't even share their food with a hungry co-worker. When Sarah told me what Karen had said, I realized I needed to document everything. I started keeping notes of every time she asked for food, every passive-aggressive comment, every time she ignored me. I also mentioned the situation to my supervisor during our weekly one-on-one, not to get Karen in trouble, but just to make sure someone knew what was going on in case it escalated. My supervisor listened and then said something that surprised me. She told me that they had actually received a couple of complaints about food going missing from the fridge. She also mentioned that Karen had been asking other people for food too, and they had been trying to figure out how to address the situation. Turns out Karen had been pulling the same routine with at least 3 other people in the office. She'd tell them she forgot her lunch, she was broke until payday, she was so hungry, couldn't they just share a little bit? And when people started saying no, she'd give them the silent treatment and call them stingy behind their backs. The final straw came 2 weeks later. I had brought a really nice homemade soup that I'd spent hours making the night before. I put it in the fridge with my name clearly labeled on it. When lunchtime came, the container was empty and the sink washed clean. I went straight to my supervisor and told her that someone had eaten my entire lunch. I explained that it was labeled with my name and everything. My supervisor pulled up the break room security camera footage, and there it was. Karen taking my soup out of the fridge, heating it up, and eating the whole thing. When confronted, she claimed she thought I had left it for everyone since it was so much food for one person. Karen was written up for theft and creating a hostile work environment. She had to pay me back for all the food she'd taken, which came out to almost $60 over 2 months. She was also required to attend a workplace behavior seminar. After the meeting with Human Resources, Karen tried to approach me and said she hoped I was happy because I had gotten her in trouble over some stupid food. I told her that she got herself in trouble by stealing my food and harassing me when I wouldn't give her more. She argued back that it wasn't stealing if she was hungry. My supervisor happened to be walking by and heard this comment. She reminded Karen that we had just had a meeting about this behavior and warned her that any more comments like that would lead to a discussion about whether this job was the right fit for her. Karen hasn't spoken to me since, which honestly has made work so much more peaceful. My sister passed away 2 years ago in a car accident, leaving behind her 6-year-old daughter. Since I was the only family she had left, I took her in without hesitation. It wasn't easy adjusting from being a single woman in my 30s to suddenly being responsible for a grieving child. But we made it work. She's the sweetest kid you could imagine, quiet, well-behaved, and incredibly attached to the few possessions she has left from her mom. The problem started when my other sister decided to visit. She's always been the entitled one in the family, thinking the world owes her everything just because she exists. She showed up last weekend with her 8-year-old son, who's basically a miniature version of her, spoiled, demanding, and used to getting whatever he wants. I have a small apartment with a balcony that overlooks the courtyard. It's not much, but my niece loves sitting out there with her dolls. She has this collection of vintage dolls that belong to her mother, and they're practically the only connection she has left to her mom. She treats them like precious treasures, which they are to her. The moment my other sister's kid saw those dolls, he wanted them. Not to play with nicely, mind you, but to grab and throw around like they were cheap toys from a dollar store. My niece politely told him she didn't want to share those particular dolls because they belonged to her mommy. The boy demanded she give them to him anyway. She tried to compromise by offering her other toys, but explained that these dolls were special and she didn't want to share them. That's when my sister decided to insert herself into the situation. She declared that my niece needed to learn to share and accused me of spoiling her. I tried to explain that she was sharing plenty of other toys and that these dolls were special to her. My sister dismissed this as ridiculous, calling the dolls just toys and labeling my niece as selfish. I tried to explain that these weren't just any dolls, but she wasn't having it. She kept pushing the issue, getting more and more aggressive about it. Her son was feeding off her energy, getting more demanding and starting to grab at the dolls despite my niece pulling them away. The whole thing escalated when we were all out on the balcony. My niece was sitting in the corner clutching her favorite doll, a porcelain one with curly hair that looked just like her mom did as a child. Her son made another grab for it, and when she pulled away, he started crying. My sister had enough and ordered my niece to give him the doll immediately, threatening to take it herself if she didn't comply. My niece refused again, repeating that it belonged to her mommy. Then my sister said something truly horrible. She told my niece that her mommy was dead and didn't need dolls anymore. I saw my niece's face crumble at those words. This woman had just told a grieving 6-year-old that her dead mother didn't need her belongings anymore. I was about to step in when things went from bad to absolutely insane. My sister grabbed my niece by the shoulders and started pushing her toward the balcony railing. She told my niece that maybe she needed to learn what happens to selfish little girls who don't share. I watched in horror when she actually started trying to force my niece closer to the edge of the balcony. We're on the 3rd floor. My niece was screaming and crying, still clutching that doll. Something in me just snapped. I've never been a violent person, but seeing someone threaten a child, my child, like that triggered every protective instinct I had. I didn't even think about it. I just reacted. I grabbed my sister by the back of her shirt and yanked her away from my knees so hard that she stumbled backward. When she spun around to face me, her face was twisted with rage. She screamed at me for putting my hands on her, saying she was just trying to teach my niece a lesson. I yelled back that she was trying to push a 6-year-old off a balcony over a doll. She insisted she wasn't going to actually hurt her. She came at me then, hands raised like she was going to hit me. I'm not proud of what happened next, but I'm not sorry either. When she swung at me, I blocked her arm and pushed back, hard. She lost her balance and fell backward, hitting her head on the concrete floor of the balcony. She was out cold. Her son started screaming. My niece was sobbing in the corner. I called an ambulance and the police, trying to keep everyone calm while my sister was unconscious on my balcony floor. When the paramedics arrived, they said she had a concussion but would be fine. The police took statements from everyone, including the neighbors who had heard the commotion and seen my sister trying to push my niece toward the railing. When my sister woke up in the hospital, she tried to press charges against me for assault. The police laughed at her, literally laughed. They had multiple witness statements about her threatening a child and trying to push her off a balcony. Instead of me getting arrested, she got charged with child endangerment and assault. My sister ranted that it was insane and that she was family, claiming she was just disciplining my niece. The police officer told her that threatening to push a child off a balcony wasn't discipline, it was child abuse. She's been ordered to stay away from us. Her son is staying with their father for now, hopefully getting some actual parenting instead of whatever she was doing. I've been living in my mom's house for the past 2 years, paying rent like any other tenant. It's not ideal at 25, but the housing market is brutal, and this arrangement works for everyone involved. My mom owns the place, I pay my share of expenses, and her longtime friend rents out the finished basement. We've all coexisted pretty peacefully until recently. My girlfriend works night shift as a nurse at the local hospital, 12-hour shifts from 7 p.m. until 7 a.m. It's exhausting work, and by the time she gets off, she's completely drained. The hospital is only about 15 minutes from my place, so after rough nights, she'll come over to shower and sleep in my room. It makes sense since her apartment is on the other side of town, and after being on her feet all night dealing with patients, the last thing she wants is a long drive home. Her routine is always the same. She arrives around 8:15 a.m., takes a quick 5 to 10 minute shower to wash off the hospital smell and feel human again, then crashes in my bed until late afternoon. She's never loud, never disruptive. She parks quietly, comes in through the side door, and goes straight upstairs. The most noise she makes is the water running for those few minutes. This had been going on for about 6 months without any issues. Then last week my mom knocked on my door with an uncomfortable expression. She asked if we could talk for a minute, and when I said sure, she told me that our basement tenant had mentioned something to her the day before. He had complained that the shower running at 8:30 a.m. was waking him up. She said he wanted her to ask if my girlfriend could maybe wait to shower until later when everyone was awake. My stomach dropped. The way she said it made it clear this wasn't really a request. I pointed out that my girlfriend works all night and gets here exhausted, just wanting to clean up before sleeping for 5 minutes. My mom said she knew that, but the basement tenant had been here for years and paid good rent. She didn't want any tension in the house. When I asked what exactly she was asking me to do, she told me to see if my girlfriend could work around it somehow. Maybe shower at the hospital or wait until later. I knew this conversation wasn't going to go well when I talked to my girlfriend that evening. She's one of the most considerate people I know, always worried about bothering others or being too much trouble. I told her that my mom had talked to me about something, and when she asked what, I explained that the guy in the basement had complained about her morning showers waking him up. I said mom asked if she could avoid showering until everyone was awake. Her face immediately changed. I could see the hurt and embarrassment wash over her. She asked if I was serious, pointing out that it was 8:30 a.m. and she was taking a normal shower. I told her I knew it was ridiculous, and that she wasn't doing anything wrong. She said that after working 12 hours straight, she just wanted to feel clean before sleeping. She couldn't exactly shower at the hospital because those facilities were gross and barely functional. I told her she didn't have to explain herself to me because the whole thing was stupid. But she said no, it was fine and that she got it. She would just go home after work from now on. I told her she didn't have to do that because this was my house too, and I paid rent here. She said it wasn't worth the drama. She didn't want to cause problems between me and my mom or make the basement guy more upset. She would just deal with the longer drive home. She wasn't angry or dramatic about it. She just quietly accepted that she wasn't welcome in the mornings anymore. That almost made it worse. If she had yelled or made a scene, at least it would have felt like she was fighting for herself. Instead, she just absorbed this unfair restriction like it was her fault. The next week, she stopped coming over after work. She'd text me when she got home to her place, usually around 9 a.m. after the long drive. I could tell she was more tired, more stressed, but she never complained. When my mom asked where my girlfriend had been lately, I told her exactly what happened. My mom seemed surprised and asked if she wasn't coming over anymore at all. I told her nope, that my girlfriend had decided it wasn't worth the hassle. My mom said that wasn't what she meant, that she just meant the shower thing. I pointed out that she had told my girlfriend she couldn't take a basic shower after working all night, so what did she think would happen? My mom said she didn't say my girlfriend couldn't shower, just that she asked if she could time it differently. I told her that my girlfriend had timed it differently by not coming here at all. My mom said that wasn't fair, that she was just trying to keep peace in the house. I asked whose peace she meant, the basement guy who thinks 8:30 a.m. is too early for a shower because that wasn't even early. My mom said he had been a good tenant for years, always paying rent on time and never causing problems. I reminded her that I paid rent too and asked why his comfort mattered more than mine and my girlfriend's. This is where things really got ridiculous. My mom started acting like my girlfriend was being unreasonable and dramatic for her response. She said my girlfriend was being childish about it, that it was just a simple request. I told my mom to listen to herself. She had asked someone not to shower after working a night shift, so how was that simple? My mom said she didn't ask her not to shower, just to be more considerate about timing. I asked what timing she meant. My girlfriend works until 7 a.m., gets here at 8:15 a.m., and showers immediately. When exactly was she supposed to shower that wouldn't wake him up? My mom suggested maybe she could shower at night before work. I asked if she was serious, so my girlfriend should shower 12 hours before coming here, work a full shift at a hospital, then just go to bed dirty. The whole argument was insane. My mom couldn't see how unreasonable the original complaint was, and now she was upset that my girlfriend made the logical choice to avoid the situation entirely. It's been 3 weeks now. My girlfriend still hasn't come over in the mornings. She's exhausted from the longer commute home, and I can tell the whole situation bothered her more than she let on. She feels unwelcome in what should be our shared space. The basement tenant acts like nothing happened. He nods hello when we pass each other, completely oblivious to the fact that his complaint about 8:30 a.m. showers ruined my girlfriend's routine and made her feel like an inconvenience. Last weekend, my mom brought it up again. She said she really thought my girlfriend had overreacted to the whole shower thing. I told her that my girlfriend didn't overreact. She removed herself from a situation where she wasn't welcome. My mom said that my girlfriend was welcome, that she never said she wasn't welcome. I told her that saying my girlfriend couldn't shower here after work was the same thing. My mom said it really wasn't. I asked her to consider this if someone told her that her basic hygiene routine was disturbing them and needed to change, would she feel welcome? She didn't have an answer for that. The irony is that now I'm the one my mom's upset with, not the basement tenant who made an unreasonable complaint about normal morning shower sounds, not herself for prioritizing his comfort over basic courtesy to my girlfriend. She's mad at me for letting my girlfriend decide to stop coming over, like I should have forced her to keep showering here just to prove a point. Yesterday, karma finally came around. The basement tenant had some friends over for a Sunday afternoon barbecue. They were loud until almost midnight, playing music and laughing right outside his basement entrance. My mom didn't sleep well because of the noise. The next morning, my mom complained that it was really inconsiderate of him to have people over so late on a Sunday. I told her that it was funny how noise could be disruptive when it affected her sleep. She said that was completely different. I asked if it was though because it seemed like the same principle to me. She walked away without responding, but I could see the wheels turning. Maybe she was finally starting to understand how ridiculous the original complaint was. An 8:30 a.m. shower disturbing someone versus midnight party noise. Which one actually seemed unreasonable? My girlfriend still doesn't come over in the mornings. She says she's gotten used to the routine now, but I know she misses the convenience and comfort of being able to crash here after difficult shifts. I'm 24, and this is my first child, a beautiful daughter who's been the light of my life despite everything being harder than I expected. The birth was rough, my recovery has been slow, and breastfeeding hasn't gone the way I hoped. My daughter has had trouble latching, so I've been pumping milk and supplementing with formula. It's not what I planned, but I'm doing what works for us. When my daughter was born, my mother immediately invited herself to come stay with us for a few weeks to help with the baby. I should have known better. My mother has always been the type of person who thinks she knows best about everything. Growing up, she criticized every choice I made, from my clothes to my friends to my career path. But I thought maybe having a grandchild would make her softer, more supportive. From the moment she arrived, she turned my house into her personal stage for showing off her parenting expertise. Every single thing I did was wrong according to her. When I held my daughter, she'd shake her head and tell me I wasn't supporting her neck properly. When I burped her, she'd say I wasn't doing it long enough or in the right position. When I fed her, she'd criticize me for feeding her too much or too little. But the worst criticism was about breastfeeding. She constantly made comments about how I wasn't bonding properly with my daughter because I was pumping instead of nursing directly. She'd make these dramatic sighs whenever she saw me preparing a bottle and mutter things about how different mothers were these days. She would go on and on about how, when she had me, she nursed me for 18 months straight, and that's how mothers are supposed to bond with their babies. When I tried to explain that I was doing the best I could and that the lactation consultant said pumping was fine, she'd dismiss it completely. She'd tell me those consultants don't know anything and that nothing replaces the real thing. Then she'd warn me that my daughter was going to have attachment issues if I kept this up. Every conversation turned into a lecture about my failures as a mother. I tried to be patient because I knew she meant well, but it was wearing me down. My husband could see how stressed I was getting, but I kept telling him I could handle it. 3 days ago, things escalated when she started making comments about taking over feeding duties entirely. She suggested that maybe she should just handle all the night feedings because I was clearly too tired to do it properly. When I told her I could handle feeding my own baby, she questioned whether I really could. She pointed out how fussy my daughter got with me and claimed she never cried like that when my mother held her. The way she said it made my skin crawl, but I brushed it off as typical mother behavior. I thought she was just being her usual, overbearing self. Yesterday morning, I was exhausted from being up all night with the baby. My daughter had been fussy and I hadn't slept more than 2 hours at a time. My mother had been making her usual comments about my incompetence all morning, so when my husband suggested I take a shower to relax, I jumped at the chance. I asked if she could watch my daughter for 20 minutes while I showered. She agreed, saying it would give her some alone time with her granddaughter. Something about the way she said that should have been a red flag, but I was too tired to think clearly. I went upstairs, turned on the shower, and let the hot water wash away some of my stress. For the first time in days, I felt like I could breathe, but that feeling lasted exactly 15 minutes. When I got out of the shower and wrapped myself in a towel, I heard my daughter making soft noises from the nursery. Not crying, just little baby sounds. I figured my mother was probably just talking to her or changing her diaper. I quickly dried off and put on my robe, planning to check on them. What I walked in on will haunt me for the rest of my life. My mother was sitting in the rocking chair with my daughter pressed against her bare chest. She had pulled down her shirt and bra and was trying to get my baby to latch onto her breast. My 3-week-old daughter's face was pressed against my mother's skin while my mother held her head in position. I stood there for a split second, unable to process what I was seeing. Then reality hit me like a truck. I screamed at her, asking what the hell she was doing. My mother looked up at me with this completely calm expression like I had just walked in on her reading a book instead of something absolutely insane. She told me to relax and that my daughter wasn't getting anything anyway. She said she just missed the feeling of nursing and that I wouldn't understand since I wasn't really bonding with my daughter like she had bonded with me. I completely lost it. Every frustration from the past 3 weeks, every criticism, every undermining comment came pouring out. I yelled at her to get away from my baby right now. She told me not to be so dramatic and claimed she was just trying to soothe my daughter. I screamed back that putting a baby on her breast wasn't soothing, it was completely inappropriate. She insisted I was being ridiculous and reminded me that she was the grandmother. She said she had changed my diapers, so she could certainly comfort her granddaughter. I told her this wasn't comforting and that it was wrong on so many levels, I didn't even know where to start. I snatched my daughter away from her, and my baby immediately started crying, probably sensing my panic and anger. My mother just sat there fixing her shirt like nothing had happened. She had the nerve to say that now I had upset my daughter and that she was perfectly calm before. I screamed at her to get out of my house right now. She said I was being hormonal and that new mothers always overreact to everything. That's when my husband came running upstairs, probably hearing my shouting from downstairs. He asked what was going on, and I told him she was trying to nurse our daughter. My husband's face went white, then angry. He looked at my mother, who was still sitting in the rocking chair, like she was the victim in this situation. When he asked if it was true, she said she was just trying to help. She claimed I was clearly struggling with bonding and that the baby responded better to her anyway. My husband told her she needed to pack her bags and leave immediately. She said this was ridiculous and that she was being punished for trying to help her own daughter. He explained that she was being asked to leave for crossing a massive boundary and that this wasn't helping. It was completely inappropriate. My mother finally got up from the chair, but not before making one last comment that made my blood boil. She said fine, but told me not to come crying to her when I realized I didn't know what I was doing. She said that baby needed someone who actually knew how to mother her. It took everything in me not to completely explode at that moment. My husband walked her to the guest room and stood there while she packed her bags. She left within an hour, complaining the entire time about how ungrateful I was and how she was only trying to help. But the nightmare didn't end there. Within hours of her leaving, my phone started blowing up with calls and texts from various family members. My mother had called everyone and told them her version of the story, where I had humiliated her and kicked her out for trying to help with the baby. My aunt called first and said my mother was devastated. She claimed my mother was just trying to bond with her granddaughter. I explained that she was trying to breastfeed my baby and that wasn't bonding, it was inappropriate. My aunt brushed it off, saying my mother had changed plenty of diapers in her day and that I was overreacting. Then my cousin texted me saying I was being too sensitive and that my mother was heartbroken. My grandmother called to lecture me about respecting my elders and how my mother had sacrificed everything to help me. Each call made me angrier. How was I the bad guy in this situation? How was what she did considered helping? My mother's sister called and had the nerve to say that maybe my mother should get grandparents' rights to see my daughter since I was being unreasonable. That's when I decided I was done being polite. I told her to let me be very clear about something. I explained that what my mother did was inappropriate and violated my daughter's boundaries and mine. I said if anyone in this family thought it was normal for a grandmother to attempt to breastfeed someone else's baby, then they wouldn't be seeing my daughter either. The silence on the other end of the phone was satisfying, but I wasn't finished. I warned that if I heard one more person use the phrase grandparents' rights, I would be contacting a lawyer to discuss restraining orders. I hung up and turned off my phone. My husband has been incredibly supportive through all of this. He keeps reassuring me that I did the right thing and that my reaction was completely justified. but I still find myself questioning everything. Was I too harsh? Am I overreacting like everyone says? Then I think about what I walked in on, and I know I'm not. What grandmother tries to breastfeed her granddaughter? What person thinks that's acceptable behavior? I can't shake the feeling that this wasn't a spur-of-the-moment thing. The way she was so calm when I caught her, the way she immediately tried to justify it, the way she'd been making comments about taking over feeding duties, it all feels calculated. 2 days have passed since she left and my house feels peaceful for the first time since my daughter was born. I'm not walking on eggshells waiting for the next criticism. I'm not second-guessing every parenting decision I make. I'm just enjoying my baby. My daughter seems more relaxed too. She's been sleeping better and seems less fussy during feedings. Maybe she was picking up on all the tension that my mother brought into our home. Yesterday I got a text from my mother. It wasn't an apology. She said she hoped I was happy and that I had ruined her relationship with her granddaughter over nothing. I deleted it without responding. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.